Say it again.
Talk to me, baby. Háblame de seguros.
I'm Vera Igni.
Y yo, Itzel Greenheck. Y juntas somos
Talk Insurance to me.
It's an honor for me to be here with you guys.
You may already know a little bit about it. Maybe you saw some of the previous interviews. Like, we're really focused on California insurance professionals and the California insurance industry. Of course, we love the whole industry globally, all the professionals. But since we are in California, it's been really great to us. As you know, I mean, we've all been in it for so long and we're still here, right? So
Yeah.
for whatever reason, we don't get out. So
Exactly.
it's like The Godfather, right? Just when I think I was out, they pull me back in.
Exactly.
So,
Yes, exactly.
yeah. So we're really happy and excited to have you on.
Thank you.
And it's also gonna, before we ask you to tell us a little bit about yourself, we just want to ask you a couple of questions just so we can kind of get
of course.
and then we'll deep dive on that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yes. The only condition though is that you just need to ask me whatever gets in
Like
your
that.
mind, like fast, without even
Okay.
thinking. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. So the first question is wine or beer?
Wine.
Okay.
Lately,
Brothers-
wine. I used to love beer, but I've been
Yeah,
cut,
I'm kind of surprised. I was like, oh my God, I was betting on beer, but okay.
I cut the carbs, so
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
Broker fee or no broker fee?
gosh, that's a tough one. I
1,
think
2, 3, go.
I think you need to have a broker fee. Broker fee, yes.
Okay.
A fair
Right.
broker fee.
Even better. Breakfast in Paris or tacos in Mexico City?
Man,
That's hard.
well, you know what? See, whenever I go to Paris, not that I go all the time, but when I go, my breakfast is usually just a croissant and coffee, So
yeah, but I
that's
mean,
not a
what
full
better
breakfast.
place?
Yeah.
What better
what
place
place.
for that?
So tacos in Mexico, I'd say, because then I eat everything,
Okay.
It's a full meal.
Boxers or briefs?
In between boxer briefs, because I wear both. I wear that.
Okay.
I like the length. I don't like the tighty whitey stuff,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I like the form fitting. I don't want it to be baggy either. So
Exactly.
Awesome. Batman or Superman?
Batman.
Yes.
Na-na-na-na-na-na. Me too. I love
Yeah.
Batman.
He's
I
the-
do like
he-
Superman as well, but Batman
Yeah,
takes
but
cake. I like
Batman is, the king of the night, kind
Yes.
of, and I like that,
Love it.
Exactly. A little bit of a dark
the
side.
dark knight,
Yes.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you
Awesome.
very much for answering those questions. We got to know a little
That
bit
was
about
fun.
you. A little speed round.
Yeah.
But now, if you could introduce yourself and
Sure.
sprinkle in how you got into insurance, that would be
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, so my name's Jim Dougherty. I'm Vice President of Marketing and Sales for Anchor General Insurance currently. So you might be seeing this video 10 years from now and maybe I'm retired or whatever, but currently at this moment, I'm at Anchor General.
Traveling between
Insurance.
Paris and Mexico City.
Yeah, exactly. I started this in the industry in 1996. I didn't, I think like a lot of us, we got into this industry just by accident.
Right.
And you talk to a lot of people and it's a common theme, no one plans to go into insurance. When you go to college, very few colleges, I think some now have insurance classes, but they don't have insurance classes, right? So you don't really necessarily plan to go into insurance. Though I didn't plan to get in the insurance industry. I just graduated from law school and I was waiting for my bar results. And I in law school, you're so close with your law schoolmates, because it's a small group. And I didn't, when I was in college, I commuted to college, so I didn't spend a lot of time on campus. And so I did have friends from college, but not as close as I did from law school. So I had a friend who was clerking, when you're in your third-year law school, you end up clerking for a law firm or
Right.
a corporation or something like that. And he was clerking for Safeco Insurance. And he said, I love this. He goes, this is going to be my job forever. And one of the things that I didn't want to be when I graduated from law school, even at the end of law school, and we can get into it later, but was I didn't want to be working 80 hours a week and things like that. And he said, no, it's a 9-to-5 job. I'm in the office at 9 and leave at 5. And I'm going, well, is that because
Like,
he's
hold
just a
on a minute,
clerk,
what?
or, he goes, no, that's what it's like with some of the other attorneys, there. And I said, okay, I go, maybe I want to do insurance. And so I started looking, writing letters to insurance carriers and saying, hey, do you need a summer intern or clerk or anything like that? And none of them did, but they go, no, but we'd love you to come apply for our claims positions. And that's what kind of happened to me. I fell into a claims position at Infinity Insurance. And I know they didn't want to hire me initially because I talked to the hiring manager. I still know her very well. And she says, I was worried because I figured that as soon as you get your results and you're going to go and leave, and, I'd be stuck looking for someone else. So she was a little hesitant, but there was another guy that was working with us at the time, and he was the manager. She was his supervisor and he was the manager. And he goes, I just want someone, and I think Jim would be great. And so that's how I got in. I started on the claim side of things, and they promised that, hey, yeah, someday we'll have maybe a legal office and you can start working there, or, there's a litigation department and you can do that. And that's how I ended up getting in.
Okay, it's super interesting because, most of us go into insurance through sales. We either were agents or something with marketing, and then we landed in insurance, and it's actually very surprising
landed the rep
for me.
Somehow, right?
Yes, yeah, exactly. And then all of a sudden, to learn that you got through claims is actually something I didn't know. So
so I have about 2 years of claims background. Back in those days, we did everything from cradle to grave. So we went out, investigated the claim. We had cars and went out to interview insureds, interview witnesses, interview the claimants. We'd take pictures. We'd write the estimates on the vehicles. We'd negotiate with the body shops. We negotiate with the attorneys on settling bodily injury claims. We sent our own letters out. We did everything. I'm sorry that now insurance carriers are so specialized in those departments that very few people get to experience that whole thing. So for me, it was great because I got to see things from, when I talk to claims departments, I understand where they're coming from because I've been there. Yeah, there's a lot more modernization. When I started out, we used to write our estimates manually, and there were computers. Don't get me wrong. I'm not that old, but the software to writing an estimate for repairs on a vehicle, it wasn't that abundant. And we had one laptop in the office, and it was all dial up, and it would take forever. And everyone would say, "Are you done with that computer? I need to use it," But things have come a long way, and I understand. I can add my advice or I'd add my my thoughts on processes because I've experienced that a little bit on the claim side of things. So anyway, let's talk about how I transitioned into marketing and sales. So I was really getting burnt out in claims, and that this was the time before all the overtime lawsuits were going against the insurance carriers. I think Farmers Insurance was one of the biggest carriers that kind of it started there, and then it just kind of snowballed into all carriers, and then it kind of changed the industry. I was just like work, and not having fun. I had fun because I had coworkers that were in the same boat and doing the same thing. And it's funny because a lot of them are still in the industry, and we talk about those days, and it's crazy. But I didn't want to do that anymore. The thing that I didn't want to do as an attorney was happening to me in claims, working these crazy hours. And, a lot of people give millennials a hard time about, wanting to have that work-life balance. But, I understood it from the very beginning. You need to have that. You really do. You can't. It's fine if that drives you, but if it doesn't drive you, working long hours, then don't do it, But if you love it and you thrive off of it, if you get the energy off of it, there's nothing wrong with it. And so I think there's different people, but I wasn't getting the energy of just like being in the office all day and working on computers. So about that time, Infinity had some changes with the marketing side. They brought in a new vice president of marketing, Glenn Godwin, and he started doing a lot of changes, and he had a lot of really good ideas about kind of marketing and using agents to be kind of an advocate for the carrier, right? So an agent's not going to be agent broker, I should say. I'm not going to say agent I'm going to say agent in a generic sense. So if you ever hear me say that, I'm including brokers in that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Agent in the generic sense, audience.
Yeah, I tried to, I usually say producer, but
Yeah.
so we'll say producer, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
even more generic because a producer could be the CSR, could be the owner of the agency, the brokerage, whatever. So, but anyway, going back to Glenn, he really thought about advocating using the producer, the agent, the broker to advocate on behalf of the carrier, and it's something that always stood through for many, many years at Infinity was that, because even it came down to plaques in the office, we didn't have, people always say, hey, why don't you have plaques? Well, you know what, why put plaques? Sell yourself as an agent to your customer. The carriers, unless they love you and know you so well, and most of the customers don't, why put a plaque of a carrier on a thing? That's really for you, not for the customer that comes into the door,
That's
so
interesting that you bring that up, because
Yes.
many times the customer has no idea who the carrier is.
They
yet
don't.
You want that plaque really, and the producer just wants to be able to somehow show other producers, oh, I have that appointment.
Yeah, I think it becomes more of a badge of honor and all
It
that
does, yeah.
It's there's some psychology behind that for sure. They have, I don't know if you have any of those apps that gamify. So if your Fitbit tells you just climbed Mount Everest by that last, mile that you walked, then in your whole lifetime,
but really
exactly.
just walked around flat ground.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think there's a lot of that, but, for longest time, we felt that, hey, promote yourself, promote what you do in your community. Why don't you have, and we did this a lot at Infinity. We would go to agents' offices and kind of do a redo of their office. And we'd say, hey, what do you do in the community? Oh, I'm very active, with a food drive, or I'm not a food drive, like a food bank, or, I go and feed the homeless on the weekends, or, I teach kids math, after school in a low income neighborhood. And, we would say, well, that's what you need to promote, because your customers are from your community. And if you're supporting your community, they want to support you back too. And so the insurance carrier's logo on your wall, it's not going to convey that, or it's not going to bring that message. One of the Los Angeles marketing reps left, and I applied for the position, and I remember my interview. It was the most casual interview I ever had in my life, so and it's weird because at Infinity we stuck to like structure, interview guides and things like that, so it was really odd for me. We weren't huge at that time as a company. I mean, we were decent size, but I was covering everywhere from San Diego to Riverside to Palm Springs to, my territory was huge. That's how I started.
It's funny that you said that your interview was so laxed. I feel like, I don't know, let's say 10 years ago, especially when it was for a marketing rep position, the interviews were very relaxed. I think they understood that you have to have that personality and that kind of, I don't know, EQ, to be able to have that rapport with the producers as well, right? Now I think it's some carriers are much more a little more hardline. I personally don't agree with that, but that's just my opinion. But so it's interesting that it was like that, especially at Infinity. I guess I would have guessed, but at the same time, not.
Yeah, I think it's good to have a balance. It's the structure is good, but at the same time, the type of job that we do as territory managers, and I'm just talking about, being one, it's you have to have this ability to be relaxed and, and build rapport and, and that you don't see it's that much in a really formal setting.
Yeah. Okay. Let me ask you guys this question.
Yeah.
How many interviews did you ever have where someone says, see this pen, sell me this pen?
Honestly, not one.
Okay,
Thankfully.
good. Thankfully, because I go run away if you get someone who does
Yes.
that to you.
Yes.
All you young people out there listening, watching this, run away if your manager does
away.
ask you that one. So
Yeah.
anyway,
You don't want that question.
No.
It's a bad idea. Go. All of a
Exactly.
sudden, I envision pyramid schemes and all
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
So, Itzel mentioned this, pero no sabía que hablas español, Jim.
Yes.
Sí, pero no hablo muy bien.
Pero lo
But
suficiente para
still,
entenderme.
Sí, claro,
Sí,
claro. Sí,
that was-
entiendo muy bien, pero cuando lo hablo no, porque no lo hablo cada día.
Claro.
Y
Pues llámala a Itzel todos los días, ella te habla.
Yes, yo te voy a hablar, yo voy a
O text
poner
message,
tu...
o sabes, le encantan los audio messages, ahí mándale unos audio messages en español para que practiquen. Yeah, awesome.
So I mean, I was born in Mexico. I grew up.
A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, so I mean, I consider myself. It's weird because I consider myself really second generation Mexican, but I'm really first generation. I mean, I was born in Mexico. My mom is Mexican, so I'm more Mexican than some Mexican Americans in the United States in a lot of ways. But then again, I'm not as Mexican as a lot of Mexican Americans in the United States.
And that's a whole other can of worms that people sometimes don't understand, right? You're like, you don't understand the struggles that you go through mentally and emotionally because of it.
So, I mean, I feel like I have that biculturalism. I grew up in the summer times, as soon as school was over, my mom would pack us up and we get on the plane and fly to Mexico City, and we'd stay with her uncle and her brother. They lived in Mexico City, and they ran a business, they ran a factory. So
that's so cool. It must help you so much business-wise, because we deal with a lot of the Latino community. So I'm sure that they are very surprised to learn that you were born in Mexico, that you speak some Spanish, and
they open up a lot more when they know that.
Yeah,
they certainly feel a little bit kind of reserved and protected when they don't know, because I got an Anglo name. They're
like,
and all that stuff.
¿Y este güero qué onda?
Yes, exactly.
¿Qué quiere?
Yeah. So, and it's funny because when you talk about that, I've heard people say stuff like that, and I start breaking out in Spanish, and they're like, face turns white.
They start sweating.
And it happened to me in claims all the time too, because we would do statements in attorneys' offices and all that stuff. And a couple times I heard the attorneys, the paralegals, basically tell the claimants to lie, and and then afterwards the paralegal would say something like, so when can we expect a settlement? I go, I could tell you right now that I'm going to give you zero, and then they go, what? And I go, I heard everything you said in Spanish. And then I break out in Spanish, and their face like, I go, I heard what you told them, So anyway.
Well, that whole fraud business in the insurance business is a whole separate interview that we could dive into.
Yes.
Jim, we want to know, what is your definition of success?
Gosh, of all the questions that I ever get asked, that one's a tough one, because, success, is it money? Is it having things? Is it having peace of mind? And as I get older, when I was young, I wanted everything. I wanted to be the big baller. I want to have fancy cars, fancy watches, big houses, and all that kind of stuff. That was like my driving factor. But as you get older, you just want peace of mind. You want security, I think. And if anything, the feeling of just being secure and knowing that you're doing a good job, and that you're needed and useful, that shows success. I think. I always tell everyone, I go, I love Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The hierarchy triangle, right? About how people progress and how they get inspired, or their motivation, right? And the motivation depends on what level you are in your being as a human. And at the very bottom, it's the basic things: food, water, shelter, and that's the most important thing. But when you get to the top, it's about self-realization, about like, hey, I'm at the best that I can be right now, and I'm happy with it. And I don't worry about food, shelter, and and water because I got to that top level. So, and that inspires me. So, I look for now in my leadership, like people who lead me, they have to be at that level to be able to inspire me. They can't inspire me with money. Money will come, So I get, honestly, I get headhunters calling all the time and I go, we could be paying you so much more. It's not about that. It's about, hey, I got to be satisfied with the work I do and have something to be able to do and feeling like I'm learning something every day still. And that for me, that's success. And, the insurance industry has been a great industry. I tell young people all the time, I go, you should look into it. I go, it may sound boring to you, but,
So much.
Yeah, people like want to go and work for Google and Amazon and Apple.
Insurance makes the world go round.
Yeah,
Google
and
needs
they go,
insurance.
and unless you're working like in some really, really fun department in those companies, it's a job still, and it's a lot of hard work and sometimes it's not as fun. And I definitely know people that hate working for those big corporations and they got to work for smaller companies and they loved it because there was more freedom, there's more autonomy, there's less rules, it gave them a chance to be, all those companies were probably great when they're first young because they had the ability to do that with the employees. But when you get bigger and bigger and bigger as a corporation, it's harder to get that creativity. And I think one thing, if you ever talk about leadership, if leadership forgets that about how fun it was to build something, then all your employees will never have fun and you'll never really build. You'll just kind of just stay stagnant and be okay, but you're not going to be innovative and you're not going to have the best talent. So
and that's why it's important for us to do these highlights because we do want to show young and old, like there is great leadership, there is a lot of innovation within insurance, and I think a lot of individuals just stay stuck at the auto insurance level, right? They just think, oh, insurance, like, yeah, I have it for my car, for my, like, I hate having to pay for it, I never use it. I'm like, yeah, that's really a good thing if you never have to actually use it. But then you start looking into the complexities of it, on how everyone needs it, on how companies run on it. And then you get into reinsurance and that's when their minds are blowing. And it's InsurTech is huge also. So, if they have a development mind, it's a great field to get into.
Well, that's where all the money seems to be going nowadays. And it's crazy too, because, I won't name the name, but there's a company going public this week. And the valuation's crazy. For the fact that they haven't made money yet.
I know, it's insane.
Coming a little bit back to what you just said, I think insurance is super important. I think it's sexy and very interesting because it has so many moving parts. But even though it's not only sales, I think some of our agents get stuck on the sales mentality, how I do better sales, how I do this. And you actually were mentioning something about being part of the community. And I think that's the part that Vera and I always talking about and that I wanna, showcase to all our agents and to everybody involved in the insurance is that it has a really nice human side that is part of it, that we haven't really, we need to keep going back into that. You coming from, all this background in claims and marketing and, risk management, where do you see from where you are now, sitting, where do you see the industry going?
I'm hoping it's going to get younger because it's aging out and there's not enough people to replace a lot of the things. And, you can replace people to some extent with computers and things like that, but you really can't at the same time.
Especially not in insurance. There's so much subjectivity,
Yes,
so.
Exactly. When a computer can decide, we see this today that they just, I think last week I saw it in an insurance newsletter that Mercedes-Benz decided that if it's a human on the road or a car on the road with their autonomous driving car, they're going to save the car because of the passenger in the car over the human. So they'll sacrifice a human. I don't want a computer making that choice for me, you know?
It's hard.
And it's hard because, hey, Mercedes, we don't want you. We're pedestrians on the street. What we don't want those cars on the road. So do you think you'll see a backlash from consumers saying, hey, autonomous cars, we don't want them because they make those choices. I'd rather have a human making that decision, yeah, I mean, maybe someone will get hit and get hurt, but anyway, so I don't really trust computers today so much to make those human decisions,
Do you think that that's where the trajectory, like we're really headed more? I mean, obviously there's a lot of talk about autonomous cars and also algorithms to decide our lives and all this. In terms of insurance, because you bring it up, do you feel like that's really where we're going?
Well, it's weird because I feel like we're seeing a pendulum swing, that I think a lot of people are buying stuff online, all that, and, talking about these companies that gone public recently and making a lot of money and getting a lot of attention. And the young people are totally falling for it, I think. But then they start getting an experience of how bad the claims services are or their experience at the end. And they kind of want to talk to human and they can't talk to human because it's all set up, it's like Amazon, you can't get a hold of a human hardly ever if you have an issue, and you have to go through a flow chart and see if any of it's on there. And it's like, hey, my answer's not on this thing. I need to talk to human to
I always tell people, you always need someone to yell at. You can't get rid of humans.
It's not the same feeling. You don't get the same satisfaction.
I just was reading some, posts on this newsletter. I love it because they cover the insurtech world, but they're very, I wouldn't say they're cynical about it, because they make money off these guys who are in insurtech, but they're critical with a good critical eye and question, and they send the right questions. And so anyway, they were covering pet insurance and young people experiences with it. And, people love using Twitter and Instagram, whatever. And so on these carriers pages, they're saying, well, yeah, you took my money right away and it was easy, but why isn't it so easy to have this claim handled? It's been a month already, or things like that. So, it's not perfect, the system. And I still think people are very necessary. And it's still expensive to do all that, to acquire that customer. These carriers are spending so much money in the acquisition. So while I think that technology helps and helps you get things faster, I think it's going to go back, and this is kind of a long way around to the answer to your question. I think it's going to go back to agents. Independent agents are still the most efficient way for a carrier to do business, in my opinion. They, at Infinity, when we were doing the Infinity Plus models, working with independent agents, we didn't want to open our own offices, and everyone thought that's what we were doing. We were partnering with agents to do it. And the whole idea was, my boss used to say, it doesn't make sense for us to go and buy office equipment because we're going to buy the most expensive office equipment. And at the end, we're going to spend $100,000 to open an office. Where our independent agents, they do what they can. They go to the refurbished office supply store and go and get their desks. And, they're open an office with $5,000. They've got their printer and all that stuff. Yeah. They're efficient. They know how to do that efficiency, Yes. And
they have their different markets, it's not the same, the insurance in downtown LA that the insurance agency in San Isidro. Exactly. So that's efficiency, because that's different markets that you actually have. It's just like the risk completely spread, and you can, even learn from each.
Yeah, and maybe the insurtech gets there, but I still don't see profits coming from these guys. Very few, So,
I mean, there's something to it where I also say, we've talked about this before, Jim. It's like some carriers never, they might have marketing reps, but sometimes they don't listen to the feedback of the marketing reps. And because the C-suite or other have never had boots on the ground, they don't get it. And InsurTech comes in and says, we're going to dominate all of Southern California. I'm like, do you know East LA very well?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know Huntington Park? Do you know Monterey Park? Like it's not going to happen unless you have boots in the ground. And
Yeah.
for that, you need humans, right?
Yeah. And the communities change so quickly nowadays. I mean, more than ever before, right? You get different kinds of customers, within a 10-year span, it could change so quick. And so you really have to be on the ground to understand that, to understand how neighborhoods change and
That's the humanity.
And then quickly
yeah,
adapt to those
exactly,
changes.
exactly. You talk to a producer that's been in the same neighborhood for 20 years, and they'll tell you how it's changed and how their markets changed, right? They used to write this carrier a lot, but hey, the market changed and I needed to go to this carrier, and that happens. And you just don't see that as often. I mean, it's probably in the data, but they're not looking for it, right?
Yeah. Besides, the companies need that information to be able to quickly adapt to those changes, because the faster you adapt, the more profitable you stay. Sure. I think it goes back to the agent. I think the agents, and that's why we are doing this. The agents don't understand the power that they have. I think if they actually push back and become really true partners with the companies, with the carriers, I don't know, it has to be a little bit more of a, sorry, my cat, so more, a little bit more of a pushback, a little bit more of a, balance and complementing each other. So
We're like agents of the world unite.
Yes.
Well, that's the thing, is that they have so much power, but they don't unite,
Exactly.
Yes.
It's the craziest thing. Or they're also very wary, though I've seen more people try to help each other. But the other thing too is they don't listen to each other.
Yes.
I won't name this one agent, but I've known him for many, many years, and he has a pretty successful agency and it's pretty good. But I've seen him be exposed to so many different producers in so many different ways, but yet I've never seen him implement any of those practices in his own agency. And I know he admires those other people because they go, oh, they've really done well. And then he's asked me in the past, well, what can I do to change my business? Well, I think he needs to make that first step too. And I think that happens a lot. But I also do think
ego also.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. A lot of ego plays in it, and to grow.
And every once in a while, you have agents that are like that, or a carrier or a vendor that does it in insurance, where suddenly everyone's like, "Whoa, what is this new thing?" Like, and you'll have those old school, stubborn, closed-minded individuals that are like, that's just a fad. It's not going to last. And 10 years go by and they're still around and doing really well, right?
Yeah.
And it's great to see that. It's just about being brave enough to also say, this is how I'm going to do it. I don't care what everyone else says.
Exactly.
We have a magic question for you.
Okay, magic. Oh no.
Itzel, do you want to ask him?
Who's my favorite musician?
No.
Oh, okay.
But
Actually, if you had a magic wand and the power to fix one thing, only one thing in the industry, what will it be?
Oh gosh.
He's like, there's a long list.
Well, I mean,
The
honestly,
lightning claims. I'm just kidding.
in the industry, I would say, for me, the cost of data.
Okay.
So expensive. It's expensive for carriers, and it ends up, they have to pass it on to the consumer, right? But it also leads to a bad experience for the consumer too at the same time. So I'll give you an example. So when you order like reports for a carrier to run the background on a customer, those expenses carry up, and some carriers share that expense with their agents and all that. But it gives you a more accurate rate, right, for the consumer. And some carriers do without it because it's so expensive that they won't do it, and then the customer doesn't get an accurate rate on them until after they're run. And so I don't think the experience for the customer is that great, because of this disjointedness in these reports and not being consistent. And I think that's the biggest complaint of people shopping online. They feel like they get swindled from the online companies because, they're trying to get rate comparisons, and some of the companies run those reports, some don't, and then they get a rate, and then they go, well, your rate went up because we found a ticket. It's like, oh, why didn't you tell me that before? And so the experience is not good. And really the only reason is because those reports are so expensive. I think for carriers, it doesn't make sense all the time to be running them.
That's really interesting. Yeah. I think that I don't think that a lot of producers understand that that is actually a reality, because you have a mindset of, well, they're the carrier. They why should they make us pay for it anyway? They can afford it, or why should the consumer do it? Yeah. And when you really look at it en masse like that, it's expensive, right? Yeah. It is quite expensive.
Yeah, I mean, we're a smaller carrier, and even at Infinity, we were smaller than some of the bigger carriers. Imagine the big guys running all those reports and how expensive it is. You're running in millions and millions of dollars. You're feeding those data companies, and their families and all that. And I hope they're not driving yachts, those the owners or the presidents of those companies, because if they are, man,
they probably are. So just because you have the regulatory knowledge,
enough. I wouldn't. Enough to make me dangerous. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. That's what I always say. Yes. I'm like, no enough to make you dangerous. Oh, I love that. Thanks for saying that, Jim. We're going to use that quote everywhere now.
Yes.
What advice would you give California agents? Like, what is something that you think is really important for them to know, to understand, or to research?
To put attention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think right now, people are still forgetting about the broker fee agreement form. And I think they're forgetting to use those again. And some people didn't even know about it, right? And they're charging broker fees because they're new. They just got in the business and they go, oh, I could charge a broker fee, but they don't know that they have to use a form and they have to disclose to the customer that they're charging them a fee.
And that to me boils down to a lack of education from the Department of Insurance. And I'll say it here now, and I will tag the Department of Insurance. Like, we need to do better, and they need to align with local schools in order to really train our agents so they can be amazing, right? They already have the willingness and the smarts and the sales ability and all that, but they need sometimes just the regulatory and product knowledge too. Yeah.
Well, they used to have, the Department of Insurance used to have a spokesperson would go out to conventions and represent the department. And I don't know if that got cut in budget cuts and all that, and that kind of stuff happens, but and it is on the Department of Insurance website. This is the things you need to know as an agent and broker. You've got to go through it.
And it's there. You can copy paste it, but it's hidden. It's not, and I don't think that they shove it in your face, which they should. It's important.
Yeah.
Shove it in my face, please.
So my fear right now for agents, and I'm sorry, for brokers, is they're not using it, and it's going to bite them soon again. Yep.
Yes.
That is a good point.
Yeah.
Advice.
And I only do it because I'm concerned about them. And like I said at the very beginning, you asked me broker fee or no broker fee. I still think a broker fee is very important. And for a carrier, it's very important. A carrier doing business in California, I think it's very important too that there's a broker fee, because it helps them to not have to. I'm not going to say they're trying to avoid to pay a higher commission, but it makes commissions a less reliant upon thing for an agent to be able to sell, a company, because some carriers can't afford the commission, right? They can only afford what they can afford. Right. And, it creates a little bit of a democracy with having a broker fee. So everyone's the same. The broker picks the best price for the customer, right? And they charge a low fee for shopping that, right?
Yeah, and I think that it's gonna be that's kind of like part of the problem of some agents not using or not being aware of the broker fee reform is they are just so into the game of offering the best price, and trying to go around in order to offer the cheapest, but they don't want to show that they also have this fee, and this is something that we always talk that you need to see yourself, the agent, the broker, the producer. You need to see yourself as a financial advisor. You are not a vending machine, just, spelling out policies like tortillas.
Yeah.
You that knowledge cost. Yeah. And your customer needs to appreciate that.
Well, you have to reverse selling auto insurance as a commodity, right? Reverse
exactly.
it. With producers, you're right. They commoditize the product, and it's like, instead of like saying, hey, this is really a special company and I'm selling it to you because I really believe in it. And I've had customers that have spoke so highly when their claims experience, or when the car breaks down on the side of the road, and the roadside assistance program that they have, it's so good that, wouldn't want you to be abandoned on the side of the road. And that's why I like them. You got to be able to sell that, and the price becomes less important, than.
Yes.
Sounds like we
Yeah.
need some mindset courses in
Yes,
all of,
exactly.
Department of Insurance. We also need mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Yes.
maybe the department's partly to blame because they're saying that you should be offering the lowest price all the time to the consumer, but sometimes a lower price also, doesn't mean like quality, right? It's like, yeah, you can get a taco at one of those, like, I won't say the names, but for 50 cents on Taco Tuesday night, but are they going to be nourishing? Are they going to be healthy for you? Are they going to be full of preservatives? Or, wouldn't you rather have like a taco that's made with fresh meat and fresh corn that was just ground that morning to make the tortilla and all that stuff?
Mhm.
There's something to be said about quality too. So price isn't
Absolutely.
everything, right? The price isn't
Yes.
everything.
Absolutely.
And I think the department kind of causes that by saying, hey, you have to offer the lowest price, instead of saying, hey, let me offer all the situations, offer the lowest, the medium, the highest,
Mhm.
and talk about the differences, and I'll let the consumer pick. Yeah.
I could go on about the Department of Insurance. I like them, but I just
Yeah, I mean, I don't
Yeah,
hate
me
them.
too.
They need to be there. They need to be there to
I just
regulate.
think that they need to be more advocate for the agent as well, because they're
Well,
all
I
about the
think,
consumer. But
yes, they're elected to represent everyone, but it seems like they only represent one group. It does seem that way. They don't have good outreach to the carriers. They don't have good outreach to the agents. Frankly, they probably don't really have. They listen too much to the consumer groups, and then
Mhm.
they use that as their surrogate to reach out to the consumer, when those people have a vested interest because they make money off of
Exactly.
the consumer groups,
yes,
make money off of the carriers,
yeah.
corporations and things like that. So
Maybe we'll get a representative on here and have them,
yeah,
stand up for their side. So,
get the
um,
commissioner. He's
yeah,
Latino,
that's my goal. I'm
right?
like,
Yes.
Ricardo, come on. So, well, really, I think we want to ask you, Jim,
Yes.
when the heck are you going to run for commissioner?
I get that asked
Yes.
a lot. I
Oh.
Take a hint.
I get that asked a lot. I've been throughout my career, people say, hey, I would sponsor you. I've had like big owners of big agencies say that, and I would contribute to your thing, but I don't know if I ever wanted to be in politics, and I don't know if I'm really up for that kind of stuff. I maybe someday. There's a whole bunch of stuff, so yeah, I think I would be a fair commissioner to everyone. um and it's really about, I to me it's about being efficient all the way around. If you could be efficient and help the agent be efficient, help the carrier be efficient, it benefits the consumer because they get a lower rate, right? And
Yes.
that means more money to take their kids to the ball game, or if you're a struggling family, it means maybe an extra meal a week that they can afford, whatever it is. And I'll tell you one thing, I'm always been pro consumer, and because they're the ones who pay my salary in the end. Yeah, I work for a company, but it's the customer that pays for my salary, and I'm never going to want to take advantage of them, and know that, hey, they're making the right choice to pay their insurance bill to protect others, with liability insurance, and protecting their family. um, and they're helping me out, in the long run. So I remember, I'm going to be sidetracking here for a second. I remember one time I was waiting for an agent outside of his office out in Inglewood one time, and this gentleman comes up and raps on my door. It's an elderly gentleman, and he rolls down. He goes, "I have you guys. That's my insurance company." Because the company logo was on the side of the car. You just never could go anywhere without being spotted. But I said, "Well, thank you, sir. I really appreciate it." He goes, "The one thing that I really need is you to be able to adjust when I can pay my insurance. Dates, because I live on a fixed income, and I only get paid on these days. And by the time my when my policy is due, it's before I get paid. And so I've already run out of money then. So I'm always late and I'm always having to pay a $5 charge to you all the time on that. And it just like really broke my heart because, $5 every month. So, if it's a whole year, that's $60 every year that he
A lot
doesn't
of
have
money
to pay.
for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I could tell that he was low income and all that. And sometimes the carriers don't think about those things. And I remember I got on the phone, I talked to my product manager, what can we do to fix, to be able to adjust when people can make their payments? Some people, can make it all at once, make a bigger payment, down payment, as long as they can choose when their payments are. And he goes, oh, that's going to be so hard and all that. But, eventually I know that carriers were able to do those type of things. And, those are the things that we don't think about. And we kind of live with blinders on. And I'll tell you one more story. I follow a lot of people, that I admire, very intelligent people, in the stock markets and investments and things like that. And one of them is, if you know Mohammed Al-Aryan, he used to be the head of PIMCO. He worked for Allianz. Is it Allianz? Zurich? No, Allianz, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, he's now, I think, at the head of Queen's College in London, School of Economics, but very intelligent man. You'll see him on MSN. You'll see him on all over the place. And he went to speak at my school, and I said, I got to go and see him. And he talked about when he worked at PIMCO, and he thought he was so creative as a CEO, to have these bag lunches once, I think he's had them once a month or once a week, I can't remember what it was, where everyone could bring their lunch to the lunchroom and they could ask the CEO any question they wanted. One of his employees, who was one of the employees there, she says, I used to hate you so much. And he's like, was taken aback. And he said, why do you hate? And he goes, because you come into the office and you have reports on your desk, right? Yeah, I come in, and he would get there early in the morning, and they were reports from what's going on in the stock market in Asia, or the Eastern time zone or the further time zones. And so you had to have up to the minute information on reports. And my boss was in charge of getting those reports to you. And he says, okay. And he says, and who do you think has to print up those reports, and who has to do all the research for my boss? That's me. And I'm a single mom, and I have to take my kids to school in the morning and run them off and still get here in the report. There's many times I was here in the office at 5 o'clock in the morning, getting those reports done first, going to take my kids and coming back and all that stuff. And he said something about, at that point, he realized how he lives his life with blinders, that he's blind to the needs of others. And that opened up a whole thing. He had to think about, hey, when I ask for that report, who does it impact, along the line, down the line, and I say the same thing about our customers. When we make a change, how is that going to affect our customer down the line? Does that mean that they can't feed their family on Friday when they used to have like a special night to take pizza? Now it's, leftovers from the last 2 days. Does it mean that, they can't afford their trip, their annual family vacation, things that we take for granted, because, we have stable jobs and things like that. And we forget about those things. And that little old man that I saw on the street, I'll never forget that. It'll always impact me in terms of how I make decisions and see how it's going to affect the consumer, at the same time.
Thank you for sharing that, Jim.
Yeah, that's a great story.
It was so human of you and human of him to share his story.
Yeah.
And that's exactly why we're doing this, because you're right. You can't take the humanity out of any industry, but especially the insurance industry, because it is all about people all along the ladder, right? So
yeah. And I'm going to take a lot of credit here, because I know we have independent agents that are like that too. Mm-hmm. And I've heard many a times that they've paid for the payment for their customers because their customers have been with them for such a long time, and they knew that the customer was good to make the payment the next month, but that month they may have been having a little trouble, and that's what I admire about the independent agent. If you're working with an insurtech company, I don't know if they're going to take make a payment on your behalf, you know?
Mm,
You're not
no,
going to get that experience. So,
no.
you know, there's
And
a lot to be said
That
about
a
that.
lot.
you
The
know?
agents do go to bat for their clients, and it's really beautiful to see. But
Yeah.
that's why we just think like the agents should go to bat for each other and
yes.
make the insurance world a better place
Yes,
together,
exactly.
right?
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah, but
Okay.
well, thank you, Jim. I mean, I'm so happy because we talk all the time, but
Yeah.
not like this. And I'm so grateful to get to know you even, a little more. So let's definitely have a follow up.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll have some more regulatory chats or whatnot.
Yes.
That would be, get you prepped for your insurance commissioner run. So.
I don't know about that.
Well, it's like Inception, right? Many people are coming at you with that little idea. So now you
Yeah,
have
exactly.
yeah.
Hey, I do one more thing. I
Yeah.
love that you guys are doing this, and I've always said this, that our insurance industry, it thrives because there's women in the insurance industry, and you are two leaders in this industry and
Thank you.
inspiration. And we definitely have that, our independent agents are women owned, the large percentage
know.
of these offices are women owned. And, yet the carriers are advertising or targeting them with masculine things and all that. And I used to say, like, all the time, like, people would say, let's run a contest to get more business. How about a day of golf or, fishing on the boat? And I go,
Oh, sports.
I go, yeah, sports, and I go, hey, our agents are women people, these are the people who make our business. And, we've got to be able to include them as well. And I'm glad that you guys are here. And I'm really, I think you're great inspiration and great leadership too on your end.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
That's
Yeah.
very nice to hear. Thank
That
you very
really
much,
means
Jim.
a lot.
I
Yeah.
hug you from afar.
Me too.
Well,
Get to a hug.
I hope the next time that we chat, we're able to do this interview in person. That would be really, really awesome.
That would
and
be
fun.
nice.
So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Yeah. Certainly we need to have a second or third interview for sure.
Oh yeah,
Okay,
we're coming
sounds
at you again for sure.
We can pick a topic and just talk about it,
Yeah,
and
that's
Yes.
exactly. This was just to get to know you.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
now we'll do a
sounds good.
deep dive. Yes, thank
Sounds
you.
good. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Well,
you so
Talk
much.
Insurance to me is out. Thank you.
Okay.
Mwah.